Diddy wants a gag in court. He is saying that people shouldn't be allowed to post or talk about this case at all because it's very prejudicial against him, as you would expect it to be when people are talking about your freak-off parties 24/7 and asking questions like, wait a minute, why is Usher now coming out and suddenly in favor of Kamala Harris when he was on The View saying he wasn't in favor of Kamala Harris not that long ago? Why is Eminem now coming out and like tap dancing to Kamala Harris out there, thrilled about endorsing her when not that long ago he wasn't doing all that? So it's like very strange. And we were asking ourselves about Diddy. Did they go to retrieve compromise so that it doesn't get out? Did they go to get compromise so that they could use it as a sword, as leverage against somebody? Was the Diddy case a shiny object to distract us all from something? Is this a get out the vote operation? I don't know what's going on. But Diddy's lawyers have now submitted this into the court, and they're saying, listen, the media is abusing the heck out of us. And so we've got to have a gag in place. It's a 6-pager, came out from Diddy's team, Agnifilo in Trader. And this is the attorneys who were signing off on it. We got Mark Agnifilo and Tenny Garagos, who we've discussed here before previously, sending this in to the judge of the Southern District of New York, same court where we spent a lot of time talking about Weinstein and Maxwell and other cases like the E. Jean Carroll case and more. But here, Diddy's lawyer says, all right, hey, judge, listen. Now, we are asking you to consider these 3 areas of the law: the local rule, so the local court rules in the Southern District of New York, the 5th and the 6th Amendments. In this, we are requesting an order. We want a gag that prohibits further extrajudicial statements from prospective witnesses and their lawyers that substantially interfere with Combs's right to a fair trial, right? And of course, we know this case is massive. So prospective witnesses, who could that be? Lawyers, we know that there's already been lawyers who've come out and explained that there was that one lawyer who said, I got 120 people who are coming out of the woodwork to make claims against this fella. Now, Mr. Combs has a constitutional right to a fair trial, saying in this other case from 1966 that if the court doesn't alleviate issues of pretrial publicity, that could be prejudicial to the defendant. There was another case. And there was another case, and they're giving us some examples of this. They say, look, to protect Diddy's constitutional rights, courts have an obligation to avoid a carnival atmosphere. In this case, the Second Circuit said a gag order on trial participants was justified. In other high-profile cases, there is a high risk of prejudice because of the high-profile nature of the case. And in cases that even had far less press than this one, courts did exercise their discretion and did impose gag orders on the participants. And also, in addition to those other rules, you have a due process. We talk about due process a lot in the Trump trials because they have afforded him none. But you should have a fair procedure that you go through when you're going to be tried in court. And part of that should be that you're not being dogpiled on from a leaky DOJ that's releasing stuff to the public that is going to hurt the defendant. Now, let's compare and contrast this, right? Diddy is requesting a gag in this case because the government and the people prosecuting him, allegedly, according to him, are acting in a way that's adverse to him. And they have all the power. They have all the cards. Now, compare and contrast that to the J6 case with Donald Trump, where they gagged Trump, the defendant, from him speaking out, even though free speech is what you have. And the carnival atmosphere was being created by the media. And you can see it's a different power, right? The defendant is invoking this as a shield. And it's the defendant's right, I would argue, to invoke that as a shield. It's not the government doesn't deserve a shield from a defendant's free speech like they claim in the case of Trump, because Trump is so big and powerful. He's a civilian. Yeah, he's a former president, but he's a civilian. No different than anybody else, says Judge Chutkin. So why does he need to be gagged then? Yeah, we know why. Now, so they continue. In addition, local rule independently applies to lawyers for witnesses as well. It empowers the court to issue a special order governing these matters like extrajudicial statements and witnesses that might interfere with the rights of the accused. So in this case, it's Diddy who's being accused. Now, as the court is aware, Mr. Combs has been the target of an unending stream of allegations by witnesses and their counsel in the press. These witnesses and their lawyers have made numerous inflammatory extrajudicial statements aimed at assassinating Diddy's character in the press, linking us to a bunch of articles. May 29th, this one was reporting on accusers calling Mr. Combs sick. Someone called him a monster. Someone said he has no soul. His behavior is disgusting. This was a TMZ article. The lawyer for the accuser was stating that Combs is not even remorseful for his actions, and Combs thinks he's invincible. Another one, a lawyer for victim one, was commenting on the disturbing and the predatory behavior of Mr. Combs. And the list goes on, saying that this was pathetic desperation of Diddy and that he had disingenuous words. In fact, witnesses and their lawyers have also vouched for the credibility and the character of their clients, and they're opining on evidence that's brought forward against Diddy. Someone commented here, a lawyer described the accusers as individuals with limited resources, right? The victims are just little people, man. They're fighting for justice. They've been marginalized. They've been abused, and they've been exploited by Diddy, a billionaire. All the atrocities that he has caused, and they've been countless over the many decades. Story goes on and on. Diddy, Jamie Foxx is brought up. A lawyer for victim one says, he has evidence and support and a story that resonates as being truthful. The public is very receptive to holding these people accountable. Tony Busby, the lawyer, says 25 of the 120 men and women he's representing were minors. Oh, gosh. We haven't seen those in criminal official allegations yet. Minors, right? That changes everything. But as it stands right now, that wasn't alleged originally. It was just sex trafficking. Similar thing happened here. 120 people, including 25 minors, calling it a harrowing escape from a gruesome attack, the deplorable way that her client was victimized. All this is going on in the media. So several of these lawyers, say Diddy's defense team, have made shockingly prejudicial and false allegations of assault and abuse of minors, the details of which don't even need to be repeated. Someone said 120 accusers are coming out against him. Now, the depravity of these abhorrent acts, they said, has scarred our client for life, one of the victims. Some have even peddled in outlandish conspiracy theories. Oh no, what? Diddy spiked baby oil with a date rape drug. Wow, so that's what was going on? That's why he had all that baby oil? Baby oil could be used as a conduit for date rape drugs like GHB or... What's more, these lawyers have done the government's work for them, repeatedly vouching for the government and commenting on the strength of the prosecutor's case. And we have a huge problem with the SDNY, like leaking to the media, right? So they leak to the media, reports it, and they're trying their case in public. They did this with E. Jean Carroll, although that was a civil case, but it was the same thing. Now, accusers opine that Combs knows what's coming down, right? They say, Combs knows it's only a matter of time, they're talking. The clock is ticking. The walls are closing in. Sooner or later, he'll be behind bars. Now, we all knew this was coming. The evidence is very clear. It's just a matter of time, said someone else. Another lawyer commented on the strength of the case. Now, these lawyers, says Diddy's defense, are by their own admission in communication with the government about their clients as potential witnesses. So they're part of the same team. A lawyer said he's going to be at the prosecutor's office for the 10th time, and that his client supplied key evidence to the prosecutor's office prosecuting Diddy, saying they've got intimate knowledge of the federal investigation and that her client was not the first, second, fifth, ninth, or however many times. Youngest victim was 9. Wow. Going all the way back to 1991. Now, it's terrible. Now, as counsel for witnesses in this case, these lawyers are prohibited from making statements. They're not allowed to say those things, which have not even been alleged yet. Moreover, because these statements undoubtedly threaten Mr. Combs' right to a fair trial, this court should exercise its discretion and issue an order requiring all potential witnesses and their counsel to refrain from making extrajudicial statements that have a substantial likelihood to interfere with Combs' trial or otherwise prejudice the due administration of justice. Gag everybody, which is obviously not going to happen, and nor should it. We further request that the court direct these potential witnesses and their counsel to remove all online postings. Delete your posts! We're not deleting anything here, okay? Punks, under their control, that would offend the local rule. Now, in addition, to the extent the government has directed or authorized such extrajudicial statements, contrary to its own obligations to ensure a fair trial, we request that the court direct the government to disclose such communications. Finally, this request is time sensitive. Each day that passes brings a fresh wave of publicity, often at the direction of the accusers and their lawyers, further prejudicing Combs's right to a fair trial. And so therefore, we ask that you respond to this quickly. Signed by Diddy's defense team. And it's a necessary filing. And it's limited enough that it doesn't apply to guys like us or me or people commenting on this stuff. I'm being facetious about that. It applies to the people who are prospective witnesses. And so it is a little bit more narrowly tailored, right? They're not trying to censor all information about this case. It's just the potential witnesses and their lawyers. Still, though, the case is huge and free speech is very important. And my response would be, we can deal with that at voir dire and we can see whether or not these. Now, that doesn't preclude other remedies, which would be like defamation, right? If they're saying that Diddy did these things and there's no evidence of that, and they're making these claims, then I think there could be some other remedies there. But this is their attempt to narrow the harm, which is appropriate. And Diddy is getting raked over the coals. And what seemingly is rightfully so based on all the evidence. There's a lot of people coming out of the woodwork, and I'm not doubting for a second that this dude is not a bad dude and caught up in bad things. But the indictment, as we read it, did not claim anything about minors and all of these other things. We want to make sure that he is getting a fair trial, because that is as important as anything, that there's a fair trial happening, and the Southern District of New York is not, in our opinion, a fair jurisdiction at all. In fact, what they seemingly do is just pick out a single person to prosecute, and they forget everybody else that's involved in the criminality, just like they did with Ghislaine Maxwell. They prosecuted her, put a nice little bow on that case, and wrapped everything else up. So in other words, it's not about justice. It's more about achieving some sort of political end. What is that political end or that tactical advantage? We'll see. But it's a necessary filing from Agnifilo and Diddy's defense team. I do not think that it will be granted. And a lot of these people will be free to continue to communicate accordingly. But we'll keep our eye on it. The docket here has more court dates coming up. And the next one looks like we're going to have a response due on October 30th by the government. And there's a debate about whether we're going to have an evidentiary hearing. And so that will be fun. If that happens, of course, we'll be here to cover it when it does. All right. And so, my friends, that's the Diddy update. Interesting stuff there.